Hello all, this is Vivek here from Pentester Academy, and thank you so much for the opportunity to have me speak at your conference. I'm going to talk about Docker breakouts today, specifically looking at privileged container capability and runc based breakouts. So let's get started. So again, I'm Vivek. I've been in cybersecurity for quite some time. I've spoken at, Black Hat, DEF CON, trained at many of these conferences, done security research, found vulnerabilities. Uh, and, I've kind of done this for a very long time, as you can see, over 20 countries, probably over the past 15 years. I've authored a bunch of books, and people now know me also as the founder CEO of Pentester Academy, which recently launched the Attack Defense Labs, which contain over 2,000 online labs on various topics in cybersecurity. Okay, so let's begin with the topic. Uh, so Docker, I think most of us have used Docker. And just to kind of draw a baseline here, Docker is simply a great way by which you can package any application in a very predictable way and deploy it anywhere. Now, the greatest advantage of Docker is that your application ends up running exactly in the same way, on every machine you distribute it to. So this definitely made Docker very popular. And I think pretty much everyone who's probably doing any form of cloud deployment must have used Docker containers or containers based on what happened. So under the hood, how do Docker containers actually manage isolation? Now, on the right hand side, we are all used to the virtual machine based model, right? So, in a virtual machine, you basically have the same hardware on top of which you have a hypervisor, which then allows you to create these isolated virtual machines. Now, these virtual machines, right from the kernel all the way, to the system libraries and the apps, are completely isolated from each other. Now, from an isolation model, definitely this is a great way to segregate. However, as you can see, a lot of stuff is getting, kind of re-replicated, such as the kernel, which for the most part, you might, have kept it the same. Uh, this is really where Docker containers come in. So in the case of Docker container, you have the same host operating system, the same kernel, on top of which then Docker allows you to go ahead and create these, individual containers where namespaces are used for isolation and C groups are used for resource rationing and allocation. So this way, now what happens is each of these containers have a reasonable amount of isolation. And at the application layer, all the libraries and all the other things required for it to run are packaged together, which are running in these individual silos called containers. Okay. So now let's understand the threatscape a bit. Of course, we are going to be looking at only a very specific kind of threat, which is some breakout examples. Now, typically how Docker or, for that matter, any form of container technology works is you have a registry where we have all the containers housed. And then you have a host on which these containers are going to run and a client which may be running on the host or which may be running independently who can go ahead and give commands to the host to do various things with the container. So a typical way by which this works is uh, containers get pulled down, or rather images get pulled down onto the Docker host, and then the Docker client can go ahead and issue basically a command to run those containers. And this is really where from the images, the Docker daemon will in turn talk to container D, runc, and all of that. And then the container gets created. So what we want to do as part of this short talk is talk about a certain kind of container and see if breakouts are possible. So the very first one is really privileged containers. So what are privileged containers? Now, by default, when a container is created, there is a need for isolation between them. And this is really where, using namespaces and, C groups for, of course, resource allocation, along with, AppArmor, SE Linux, and whatnot, there's a fair bit of security isolation which is created. And because of this, it is very, very difficult from a plain vanilla container to break out to the host. Has it happened? Yes. most of the times is because of software vulnerabilities which have been discovered. So privileged containers, unfortunately, kind of completely throw this out of the window. So privileged containers by, as you can see, the name itself allow for the containers to have a lot more power. So specifically what ends up happening is, now Docker will actually allow that container to access all devices on the host. Apart from that, it has a very, very basic, AppArmor or SC Linux based security control applied around it. So in essence, privileged containers can do pretty much a lot of damage if they get compromised. And this is really where a lot of times, developers and people deploying may inadvertently use privileged containers if they have to give access to only a certain set of devices or some other slightly privileged work, which they could have actually solved by, making sure the architecture is more robust. But unfortunately, a lot of, just like on, Ubuntu or any other Linux, when we see that segregation is difficult, we just log in as root and go ahead and do everything. A lot of people do the same for privileged containers, or rather for containers, by giving them privileges. So what we're going to do is look at a very quick demo. Now, in the interest of time, I've already recorded the demo, but you can go to attackdefense.com and try this out yourself. It's completely free, for the duration of the conference to try. So let me show you a quick demo. So what we've done is in this demo, we are going to be a user who's dropped into a privileged container. And from that privileged container, we will see how we can break out. So let's actually just going to take you directly to once the lab has started. Okay, so the lab has started and now we are on a shell, and this shell is really on a privileged container. So let's check the capability of the container. We can clearly see that we have a lot of capabilities, which would be the case when you apply the dash dash privileged option with Docker. And we can see we have capsysadmin. Now, the easiest thing that we can do is, because we have access to all the devices, we can just quickly look at our hard drive, which I can clearly see is dev SDA. The important thing is, because you have access to all the devices of the host, what you're really seeing as dev SDA is the host's hard disk, right? So now a very simple attack that the attacker can do is basically mount this, and you can imagine now within the privileged container you have access to the entire root file system of the host, and this itself is game over. But after that, of course, you could do a very simple chroot and go ahead and do a lot of other stuff as well. So let's actually jump right in. So all we are doing now is going to use the mount command and go ahead and mount the hard disk so that we have access to the host root file system. And you can clearly see how easy this is. So anytime anybody's doing privileged containers, you know why not to do them. So as you can see, now we've chrooted into the root file system, and then pretty much we can do whatever we want. In this case, we're just retrieving a very simple flag from the host file system. So privileged containers are a big no-no unless you're very, very sure that under no circumstances an attacker can gain access to that container. Okay. So the next part kind of comes with containers with capabilities. So as you can clearly see, because privileged containers did not work, people might want to now go ahead and use something which is a little less powerful, but also can still grant you reasonable capabilities to do various tasks. So this is really where, taken from Docker's documentation, you can have fine-grained control where you can add these capabilities or remove these capabilities from containers. Now, these are pretty much a mapping to Linux capability options. The biggest issue is that these capabilities, when originally designed, were just to segregate, different operational powers of the Linux root so that it could be granted. However, unfortunately, these are not very robust security boundaries per se. So some of these capabilities are powerful enough that if you have them, you can actually take over the root account. And I think, a lot of folks do not understand this and end up going ahead, putting in capabilities where they feel secure, but in reality, you can lead to full host compromise. So we'll take one example. So let's say, there's a Docker container which has a sys module capability. Maybe you wanted to go ahead and put in some, hardware device kernel modules from the container, and an attacker now has access to this container using, some other foothold attack. So what damage he can do? So let's jump right into the demo. So in this case, what we're going to do is we are going to create, or rather give the user a Docker container which has a sys module capability. So we're going to drop him into that, and then let's see what damage that he can do. Now sys module means you can insert kernel modules. As you can imagine, allows you to run as part of pretty much the kernel. So we do a cap sh print to kind of confirm that we do have sys module capability, as we've highlighted here. So now what is the game plan? Now, because we can insert a kernel module, we can do a lot of crazy things, literally even change, some of the kernel data structures and whatnot. But what we are going to show over here is insert a kernel module, and that kernel module is going to create a user mode process which runs as root. And that user mode process is nothing but a reverse shell which ends up connecting back to an attacker's listener, which is running inside the container, so that from within the container, the attacker now has access to a root shell running as part of the host. So let's do that. So we are checking our IP address because, if you want to do a reverse shell, you need to know the IP. So now we're going to create a very simple kernel module which will spawn this shell on the user mode side. Okay. So as you can see over here, the real thing is the command right here, bin bash. As you can see, we are running in bash in interactive mode. And basically what's going to happen is that when this program starts, it's actually going to connect to this IP address, which is actually going to be the Docker containers IP address on port 4444, and which is where our listener is going to be, which the attacker from within the container has started. And then once the connection succeeds, the attacker ends up getting a bash shell on the host, but this is a root shell. So let's go ahead, compile this code. So we are creating a very simple make file. What is already available, inside the container is all the make tools, etc. So now let's go ahead, create the kernel module. And the good news is you can pretty much go to the link mentioned and you can try this yourself. It's available to try for free. So now that we've compiled that, we're going to start a new shell where we're going to have our netcat based listener, which we want to start before executing the kernel module. So the listener is listening on port 4444. Now let's insert the kernel module, and boom, there you see we got a reverse connect. And now this is actually a shell on the host, and it's a root shell, as you can clearly observe. So once you have the root shell, you could pretty much do anything on the host. In this case, we're just capturing a flag, right? So the moral of the story is, just because you've used capabilities does not mean that it's a strict security boundary from the host. Actually, most capabilities will allow the attacker within a container to do crazy things on the host. So once again, do not use capabilities thinking that, now you're probably doing something right by the security books. Be very, very careful when granting that to a container. Okay. So Docker breakout's a very, very big topic. Because we only have 30 minutes for this talk, want to make sure I can talk about two or three things which you might not have seen elsewhere. So the third one I want to speak with, which is also the last one, it's privilege escalation with runc. Now, if you look under the hood, how Docker works is you have a Docker client which speaks to a Docker daemon. Now, the Docker daemon itself in turn talks to containerd, which in turn leverages runc to actually create the container. Now, these low level components like containerd, runc, etc. are also very powerful. So if you manage to get access to a system where you don't immediately see Docker running, but you see either runc or containerd, then it's possible to do a privilege escalation attack, even though you may be a non-root user on the system, uh, but with access to runc. So let's look at this demo. Okay, so in this case, in the lab, you are a non-privileged user who's actually dropped into a shell. Now, that user has access to runc. And of course, most people might not know how powerful runc is, so might not look like a big deal, but it is. So runc is basically an absolute low-level program, which is what is responsible for creating containers. So runc uses what is called a specification file, and using the specification file, it creates a container. So let's actually go ahead and see how we can do that. So the command we've run is runc spec, which ends up creating a dummy container specification file. Let's open this config.json. Now, what you would find is that this JSON is following the OCI standard, and the OCI standard basically tells us exactly what all is required in order to start a container. So as you can see, we can see that, the first part is the process to run, then you have the capabilities, then you'll have things like, file systems to mount and host name to give and all of that. So these are all the low level constructs which runc uses in order to create a container. So now what we are doing is something very, very clever is to this specification file, we are saying, hey, why don't we go ahead and mount the root file system as the file system into the container. And once we do that, now the low privileged user, when he runs runc, which has the power to now go ahead, create a container and bind the root file system, will now have access to that file system. And as you can imagine, it's game over after that. So we are editing the specification file to include that binding. So we can see that the source and the destination are both now, the root file system. So the source here is the root file system of the host. So now let's create a empty directory, and then let's go ahead, create the container using runc. So runc will now use the specification file and create a container by binding the root file system into rootfs. And this is how we will get access to it. There you go. And now you see you're inside your container. But what you're seeing right now is really the host file system. So as you can see here, now we are able to retrieve the flag, do anything else that we want. So the moral of the story here is, be very, very careful on a host which has container capability to ensure that many of these low level components are not accessible to all users, right? Fantastic. So I know it's a short talk. So, I've just picked up three interesting cases. There are a lot of great cases for Docker breakouts. Hope you had fun. Definitely reply to at SecurityTube on Twitter after you watch this talk and let me know what you think. Thank you so much.